Hi friends, it's Becky, and now that Halloween is over, I can get back to making some fall jewelry. So I'm going to be using the Leafy Landscape Bargain Bead Box. I know we got this a little bit earlier in the month. I already made a few things with it and with the companion bundle, but I really wanted to make a necklace using this it's Picasso Jasper pendant that I got. Not picture. I keep saying picture when I do these things. But I've got this Picasso Jasper pendant that I wanted to make into a necklace, and I definitely wanted to use these leaf connectors to connect my links on this. So this will be a beaded link, a beaded chain necklace. And we're going to be using these links. So for that, I am going to be using some 20 gauge vintage bronze color wire in order to make my links, to do my wire wrapping, and to make my focal here on this. I'm gonna use some tools for that, like some round nose pliers, some chain nose pliers. I do have a 6-step bill making plier that I'm going to be using for this part. And I've got some flush cutters for cutting my wire. I'm also going to be using the magnetic clasp that came in the box to close it. And I think what I want to do with this is I want to make my links and join it as I go, instead of making all the links and then putting it together with jump rings, which is a totally legitimate way to put it together, and I usually enjoy doing that so that it just makes it easier to put it all together and you have a little more flow. But I'm going to be doing that, joining this together as I make them. So let's do that. We'll make the focal. I'll make 2 of the links, show you how I join them together as I go, and then I'll go away and finish making the rest of the links and show you how we connect our focal to finish it up. So let's get started with this. Again, I'm using the 20 gauge wire. I like to warm it up with my fingers. It also helps work out some of the kinks in the wire. And I'm going to want this one to be a little bit longer than I normally do for a wrapped link on the pendant, because I'm going to be doing a little bit of, what is the word that I'm looking for? I'm going to be embellishing it with the wire when I do my wire wrapping down here. So I'm going to start right here up at the top of it with a loop, this part right here. And I'm going to want a loop that will give this enough room to be able to move around in. So I'm going to use this second step up on my bail making pliers. You've got the smallest and the second step that I think will be wide enough with that curve for this to have a little bit of movement as it's dangling down. So a couple inches down from there, I'm going to make a bend in my wire. And it doesn't have to be a right angle, it can be sort of an angle. That's fine, as long as it's a bend. And this will make it so when I make my loop, it will center the loop over the middle of this wire. Then I'm just going to bring it across the top of my pliers, open my pliers, and rotate them to move it out of the way so that I can keep it going across there to the bottom. So now that I've got a loop, and see, this is the part that you have to remember when you're joining it as you go. Now that I've got this loop, I'm going to want to put this onto the pendant before I swing it closed. Did I get the right size of a loop? Let's find out. Okay. Let's close you up a little bit better. Hold that there. I'm just going to use my fingers to pull this end around the neck of the wire. If you want to, you can use another pair of pliers like this to pull that around. and just wrap it a couple of times. That is a fairly messy wrap. I'm not super happy with the way that looks, so I'm just going to twist it a little bit like this to neaten it up a little bit. And also, there's going to be a little bit of wire wrapping over this, so I'm going to be bringing it down from this part and doing a little swirl in front of the rest of this Jasper. So now that we've got this part all wrapped and attached, now I can add my beads. And I'm using 2 of these column spacers, these fluted column spacers. Got 1, and then I'm using one of these light green and bronze rondelles. And then another fluted column. There you go. Alright, and I'm going to want a loop up here at the top above this that I'm going to be attaching the rest of my necklace to. And I'm going to want that to, when I look at it from this direction, I want my loop to be a circle and not a line. So I'm going to turn it to its side and hold the wire just above this bead, bend it over that way. And for this loop, I think I'm going to go to my 3rd step up. So that's 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make my loop. For this one, I don't have to attach it to anything first, so I can go ahead and start wrapping it without attaching it. So I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to keep going down across the front of that bead, this bead, and that bead, like that. Like, I think adding these curves, and I'm also just giving this a squish to help work harden that loop and make it so it doesn't turn into an oval later. So this will give me a little bit more of like a curve to this, because these have like a really graceful curve to them, and I want to add more of a graceful curve to the rest of this. So I'm going to keep going down here, and I'm going to add a swirl with this wire. So I'm going to just snip off the end of this wire so it's flush. I'm going to use my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to grip it right here at the point of my round nose pliers and give that a little turn. There we go, and this doesn't need to be a tight coil. So I'm just going to turn it while I'm holding this. I'm just going to push it into my finger, but again, it doesn't need to be a tight coil. I'm trying to give it some space. Like this. Like this. That's a little too, not enough space in there. There we go. Yeah, there we go. All right. Because when I looked at this, I saw a landscape. I saw like mountains and like a dark sky and some hills and brush. So I'm adding this little swirl as my sun in my landscape for this Picasso Jasper. And that is my focal. Alright, so now I need to make some links like this. I like to work off of my spool when I do this. So I'm going to straighten this out first and then start adding my beads, and going with one of these crystal rondelles, one of these little dotted bead caps, and I want the curved part of my bead cap, the inner curve, pointed towards my big Picasso Jasper round, and then the other side pointed towards it there to kind of like close it up. And then we'll put our rondelle on there. Now I'm going to want to do a wrapped loop over here. And I'm going to just use the smallest round on this, so a couple of inches down from there. Bend it back, then bring this around the top, rotate it, and make sure it goes all the way across. Now before I wrap it, I'm going to attach it to the next part in this necklace, which is going to be this connector. This is what I mean when I say I want to attach it as I go. So now that I've got that attached, I can use my fingers or another pair of pliers to do like 3, maybe 4 wraps on this. And I can give it a little squish to tighten up those wraps if I want to. Smush, just to make them a little bit neater. Snip off that end. And this is why I work from the spool, and I thread this on first, is so that I know how much to cut off. I usually measure about 3 fingers from the bottom of my last bead. And then I can start the other end of my wrapped link. And I think I want all of my wraps to be parallel to each other. So for that, instead of this loop being a circle, I'm turning it so that it's a line. Bend that over the top, and that gives me some room here for wrapping later. I'm going to use the same loop that I did before, and this will keep it consistent for the rest of these so that all of those loops are the same size. Alright, and now for this I need to attach it to the other part of my necklace, which right here is going to be my focal that I just made. So now that those two are connected, I can wrap this up. Again, you can use another pair of pliers if you don't want to use your fingers, or if it's difficult to use your fingers. Cut off your excess. If you've got any that's poking out a little bit like that, just use your chain nose pliers and tuck that right in. Just give it a little smush. Alright. So now I've got those two finished and connected. I'm going to do one more link with you, and then I'll go away and do the rest and come back. So let's do this link together. Once more, start from the spool. Put on my beads. This one will be a little bit faster. Something I always do when I'm doing this connect as you go is at least one of these I will forget to link it first, and I'll just start wrapping it and I'll have to start over. That's totally okay. Everybody does it. And it's okay to curse a little bit. So I've got my link loop, but it is not wrapped. I'm going to add my link on this end. give this a close, then wrap it. See how those are a little bit loose? It's totally okay because you can just put your pliers on the top and bottom, kind of mush them together, and that just neatens up those loops. Alright. 1, 2, 3 fingers. Bend it over the top. Make my little loop. Bring it around and attach it to the previous part that I've already connected. This part right here. This is the awkward part. Again, this is one of the reasons why sometimes I'll just make all my wrapped loops and then connect it with jump rings, because then it's not quite as awkward putting these guys together. That's okay. Different ways of putting necklaces together, and sometimes I like to do things differently than I might have before. So that's those. So I'm going to finish up the rest of these. I'm going to connect them as they go. I'm going to do the same thing for these beads on this side. I'm going to start connecting it here and then work my way back up. And once I've got all of these connected all the way to the end, just these last links here, I'm going to leave that loop unwrapped, and when I do, I'll come back and we will wrap our closure onto it, and then we'll have a necklace that is completed. And I wanted the these leaves to kind of be facing sort of opposite directions so that we have more flow, I guess, more of an organic look to the way that the links were looking. So I really like that. That's working really great for that. I don't want them all facing the same direction. I turned them different directions as I laid them out so that we could do it that way. So I will come back once I've got all these links made and we'll get this finished up. So I have gone ahead and connected each of these links as I made them, and I changed my mind about these last links. I was going to leave them unwrapped and wrap them directly onto my clasp, but I changed my mind because I'd like to make sure that these links are straight before I get the clasp connected. And the best way for me to do that is to use the jump rings in order to connect that. So I am just making sure that these are all straightened out and twisted the right way so that I can connect my clasp. To do that, I'm going to grab 2 of my pliers, and we'll just grab one of the jump rings here, hold one side still, and just twist it open like that. Then I'm going to go through one loop of this clasp and this loop of that end. Whoop. And I'm going to try not to fight with it while it's trying to attach itself to my pliers, because it's a magnetic clasp and these are metal. Right, so that is connected there. Again, make sure that this is, that way it won't be like kind of twisted when it gets connected together. I'm leaving that clasp connected while I do this next one. Alright, twisting that one open. I'm going to go through here and then attach that there. And then twist that closed. And there we have it. I have my Leafy Landscape necklace with my branches and my pendant and a magnetic clasp. There we go. I love that. Yeah, this is nice to jump right into fall. I've been doing a lot of Halloween themed things lately, and I really wanted to get back to making more fall themed jewelry. So I'll be doing some more with this bead box later. If you want to check out Bargain Bead Box, I will put a link in the description to where you can go to subscribe. I'll also put a link to some of the other things that I've made with this Bargain Bead Box and the unboxing. I also got a companion bundle. Those are limited in quantity, and they sold out like the same day that it was listed, but it has some beads that can go with and accompany this, so I will probably be making something with this later on, probably next week, because I am not done playing around with leafy fall themed beads. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked what you see, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I'll talk with you later. Happy beading!